Good day. I'm Yuri van Niekerk, the National Coordinator for South Africa, and we've put together this video to assist you in preparing your application. After the information sessions, we found that there's some technical issues that some applicants experience, and we're putting together this video to assist you in conceptualizing your project, developing the log frame, developing the budget and the implementation plan, and then completing your application. From there, we look at the evaluation criteria, which the evaluators will look for, and that will help you, hopefully, to prepare an excellent application. This is the African-German Youth Initiative Innovation Fund, and we are here to help and support you to prepare an application. Application documentation consists of 4 parts. The application is the logical framework, which explains how the project fits together. A budget, how the resources will be utilized and the funding that's required. A work plan, which will detail the implementation schedule of the different activities over the 5-month period. And then there's the application form, which will provide details of your activity as a whole. As a start, the application procedure. We advise that you complete the budget, the logical framework, and the work plan before you start completing the proposal to ensure all of this fits nicely together. Check the evaluation grid for guidance to make sure your proposal can score the maximum points in the evaluation process. Support. Online support questions can be submitted via email to your implementing agency or your national coordinator, and we will reply with a whole set of questions and answers to everybody that is interested in this and attended the information sessions. Project conceptualization and design. How do you design an African-German Youth Innovation Fund project? Some key questions you need to ask yourself in developing a good proposal. First question, what are we trying to accomplish? This is a German-South African exchange program. So within that, how and what can we do, and where do you want to position your project? What is your objective? What do you want to achieve once this project is completed? Who will be the implementers? Who will actually be implementing this? Because this is aimed at youth organizations or parent organizations supporting youth organizations. And a key question is, who will be the beneficiaries of the project? Where will the project be implemented? When will the project be implemented? You've got a 5-month time limit to complete your project. There can be absolutely no extension. So you need to think on what and where will you implement it, when will you start, and when do you end? How will we implement the project? What activities are required? We need to define our objective, but we also need to define a series of activities that, once implemented and utilizing the resources that the funding make available, to successfully complete the project and achieve the objective. The key question from that is, what resources are required to achieve our objective? The budget is providing for this, and we'll do the breakdown of the budget in that. The next question is, how do we measure success? Because it's something to design a project to achieve the objective, but how will we measure if we have been successful? So we need to think about how we're going to measure success from the start, during implementation, and then also at the end to determine whether we've been successful. The last question is, are there any other preconditions that must exist, or external factors over which we do not have control that could negatively influence our project? Those are the key questions we need to ask ourselves when we start thinking about how are we conceptualizing and designing a project for which we wish to submit a proposal. Eligibility and eligible actions on the budget. You need to pick one of 3 types of projects. There's 3 funding windows explained in the documentation and material. Support of alumni structures and networks. This is to enable African alumni from the German African Youth Exchange Program to act as multipliers for youth exchange and youth voluntary services, African alumni from the African German Youth Exchange Program as providing sustainability for an exchange program. The budget framework for this type of project is between 2,000 and 10,000 euro. Then there's another opportunity, innovative exchange formats and approaches. You might have thought, I've been on this exchange program, I've participated in this, I've heard about this, but why don't we do it this way? Why don't we change it and change the format of an exchange program? This is an innovative new way which we can do it. This funding, we know, provides opportunities to apply for funding for the promotion of innovative and inclusive approaches of African German or trilateral exchange programs, piloting new approaches. This is an ideal opportunity to secure funding to pilot a new approach, a new exchange format within that. The budget available for this type of project is between 2,000 and 15,000 euro. The third type of project that you can consider to submit for evaluation and consideration is a community-based action. This is to promote innovative community-based change projects in the context of the African German Youth Exchange Program. So this is aimed at bringing change within a community stemming from experiences in an African German Youth Exchange Program and services to implement the Agenda 2063 and the Sustainable Development Goals. This funding, we know, has a budget availability of between 2,000 and 10,000 euro. So as a start, you need to start thinking about your project. In which of these windows will this project fit in? Eligibility, you can only choose one eligible action. Otherwise, the application will be rejected. So it needs to be clearly fit into one of the previous three actions. The application will gain more evaluation points when it targets marginalized groups with regards to age, gender, class, ethnicity, language, education, and disabilities. So think, we've just spoken, who will be the beneficiaries of my project. Here's an opportunity to specifically focus and gain some additional evaluation points, which might just give you the edge to have your project selected as one of the 4 core projects that will be awarded per country. Application procedure. A bit of advice on the general approach. Complete the budget, the logical framework, and the work plan before you start writing your proposal, to assure that all of this is coherent and nicely fit together. Also, once you start writing the application, check the evaluation grid for guidance to make sure your proposal can score the maximum number of points. We'll review the evaluation grid in detail a little later in this video. Support. There's support available from your implementing organization in your country, as well as via email in the first 2 weeks of publication of the call. You can raise questions. Answers will be provided to these questions, and they will be emailed to all these people that attended information sessions. Project conceptualization. How do we actually start putting together a project? One of the key documents, the first document that you need to complete for your project is the so-called log frame. A logical framework is one part of the project planning process. Before you start, I advise you get some stationery together, ideally a big sheet of paper with a whole range of some post-it notes. The approach to this is to create what we call a problem tree. Write the main problem you wish to solve with this project in the middle of the page and work out what the project actually is. Who are the key people involved? How might they be affected by the problem? What's the impact of the problem on these people? You start writing all of these notes around this problem on the paper. You can do this, what we call a problem analysis. In the middle of your page, you write down your problem, which you wish to tackle, and then branch off possible causes of the problem until you're satisfied that you found an overall cause and effect narrative. Because this is affecting the community, this is the impact. Because of this, this is the impact. Hopefully at this point, your notes will look like a bit like a problem tree. Then change the wording into positive terms. You have now started with a problem which is generally negatively formulated. For example, if your problem was lack of sufficient water, would then become an aim to improve water supply. What is your project about? It's solving the problem. So we need to formulate it in a constructive, positive way. Once you've done that, you'll have an objective tree and you'll be able to transfer these notes into the log frame. Then it becomes quite easy to fill the log frame and complete it in a coherent, logical fashion. Now you should have gathered answers to the following questions and ready to write your log frame. What is the project going to achieve? What's the objective? Which activities will be carried out? What resources, people and equipment will you need? What potential problems might you come across in the implementation of this project? How will the progress and ultimate success of the project be measured? All of this information should now be on your sheet in different post-it notes. You might now go back and adjust that, maybe refine it after you've again reviewed these questions. Have you answered all these questions on your sheet with the post-it notes? A logical framework. Why is this such an important document in the application process? It fulfills several functions. It develops a structured set of project ideas. It clarifies the objectives and the outputs, the results that needs to be achieved. It provides a clear brief and a logical description of the proposed project. It helps to identify possible risks of the project, and it provides a useful basis for project evaluation and appraisal. A standard log frame is divided into 4 rows and 4 or 5 columns, which are your long to short-term objectives ranging from the top to the bottom. For this project, we use a very simplified log frame. But you need to start thinking to complete the simplified log frame. You still need to think on the overall start with the project purpose, the overall aim and outcome. What will be achieved with your project? Who will benefit and by when? Note, this is only a 5-month project. So you cannot be over-ambitious. Pick a small, reasonable, successful project in this process. The result or the outputs, the specific results that this project will produce. It will produce training. It will produce skills enhancement. It will develop language capabilities. It will foster better cultural interaction. One of those are the things that the project will produce. Activities, what tasks needs to be done in order for the output to be achieved. The basis of your log frame, your project purpose, the anticipated effect that the project will achieve by delivering the planned outputs. The results and outputs are tangible results that the project management team would be able to guarantee to deliver. Outputs are generally delivered within the specific time frame, the 5-month duration of your project. Activities and inputs. Inputs are the resources that the project consume in the course of undertaking the activities. Typically, they will be human resources, money, materials, equipment, and time. The activities must be undertaken by the project to produce the outputs. The activities will take time to perform, and this needs to be reflected in your project work plan. If we look at the full logical framework, it's a 4-column, 5-row structure. If there are certain preconditions that's met, and we implement the activities, we start reading it from the bottom upwards, a log frame. If there are certain preconditions, activities, which is implemented by utilizing specific means at the specific costs, that will produce certain results, which we can verify and measure, when all of these results are achieved, the project purpose, the objective that we set out at the start of the project can be achieved and can bring about that change and benefit to a community. For this project, we'll only use results and activities, the bottom part of a log frame. As an example, if our goal is to create a community of happy children and adults in a village, we then need to, developing a log frame, follow the if and then logic. An example, if we establish a community committee, which is an activity, and the people are enthusiastic, which is an assumption, then we'll have the capacity to build and manage a playground, which is a result and output of the project. If we have a playground, which was the result or the output, and it's easy to maintain, which is another assumption, then the children will have fun, the project and objective of the project objective and purpose of the whole project that we're undertaking. If the children are having fun, which is the objective we wish to achieve, and the families continue to grow in the village, which is an assumption, then we'll reach the goal of a happy community. I hope this gives you an indication of the questions and the flow of logic that you need to construct for your project. A simplified African German Youth Initiative log frame. It requires the result, the intervention that you'll do, indicators, how will you measure if this result has been achieved, the targets that you set. You want to train 20 people, we want to reach 50 people in the community. It needs to specify the sources and verification. Where will we find this information? What documents and evidence can we produce to demonstrate that the result has been achieved? Assumptions, the factors that may influence the project that are outside our control. And then we look at each of the activities. And for each activity, we also have indicators. We also have targets for each activity. The workshop will be completed within the 2 months. 20 people will attend the workshop. We'll achieve a satisfaction rate of 70% of the participants of the workshop with the learning or experience they had in the workshop. Sources of verification. Where will we find the evidence to measure these indicators? And then assumptions. There might be load shedding. There might be some external factors that will not allow us to have the workshop and cause us to delay. So this is a simplified log frame, very straightforward and not as complicated as a full overall log frame. When outlining your activities, you need to ask yourself, what can we actually do? 5 months with a limited budget. On the South African side, 10,000 euro is in the order of 160,000 rand. 15,000 euro budget is in the order of 220,000 rand. So it's not millions that you have available to achieve this project. It's a very, very limited amount of money. What have we already got that we can use to reach the overall goal? Build on things that has already been done. Specifically look at growing networks of alumni. Some of these structures exist. Some of these structures have been formed but need support to grow and solidify them. Remember to think what you're working on and going to do with each of the target groups. Who's the beneficiaries? Who will work with? Who will we deal with? And who are the community leaders, if we look at the community-based project, that we will deal with? You look at a school project, who's the principal? Those are the stakeholders you need to mobilize. Let's work through an example. The problem we have, house mothers in a one-stop shelter of XYZ province do not have capacity to deal with clients. That's the problem statement we have. We said this now needs to be reformulated into a positive statement. So our project objective, what we want to achieve with this project, is to better enable house mothers of one-stop shelters in XYZ province to deal with the clients. So that's our objective. How will we achieve that objective? We need to do two things. We need to achieve certain results. For this specific project, result 1, we'll train 60 house mothers, volunteers of the shelter to 5-day workshops through an expert on how to interact with clients. So our first result is we're going to put them through a 5-day training, and then after a period of time we're going to put them through another 5-day training. So in the end they will receive 10 days of training. To further enable these house mothers to deal with their clients, we'll also do a second step. 60 house mother volunteers of One Stop Shelter in XYZ province have been supervised and coached twice a week for 45 minutes on how to interact with clients. So we're going to have 2 results that we need to achieve. 2 5-day trainings, and then we're going to have an expert that's going to interact and coach with them 45 minutes a week to make sure that the skills they've learned on the training are embedded, they're able to apply that when they deal with their clients. So now we have a project objective, what we want to achieve, and we have 2 results. For the practicality of this exercise, we'll just look at result 1. Now we need to look and see, okay, for result 1, what are the things we need to do, the activities that will deliver this result? First activity, expert training consultant recruited. We need an expert that has got the skills and experience to train these house mother volunteers. Then we need a training manual. The consultant will develop a training curriculum for these 2 5-day workshops. Then we'll conduct the first 5-day workshop, and we'll conduct a second 5-day workshop. We will also, to ensure that the workshops and the training has been successful, we will evaluate the training. So there's 5 activities that needs to be implemented to achieve result 1, to enable and better the capability of these volunteer house mothers to deal with their clients. So there we have now conceptualized and designed a project, clearly specified what we want to do. We've got numbers, we've got specific things, and we now need to transfer this into a log frame. Log frame, we have the result number 1, top left-hand corner. We want to do these 2 5-day trainings. What are the indicators that we have there? Is the expert is contracted, we'll have the contract, we'll have certain evaluation documents. The means of verification, we can have a copy of the advert, we can have the expert contract, there's certain documentation that is it. What is an assumption? An external factor that which we have no control over, that could possibly influence this expert being contracted and providing the training. We might not get sufficient applications because this is an XYZ province. People might not be interested to work there. So that's an assumption that could negatively impact our project, which we do not have control over from the start. Then we look at activity 1.1, which is recruit the consultant. There are certain indicators we can have the advertisement, we can have record of the interviews, and we have the training and contract of the expert. The means of verification, on file we have a copy of the advert we published, we have the minutes and records of the evaluation and review selection committee meetings, and we have a copy of the contract of the consultant. Assumptions, sufficient applications are not received. Those are factors that are outside our control. Number 2, the curriculum is developed. Once again, there's the training curriculum. That's the indicator. Is the training curriculum completed? A copy of the training curriculum is the means of verification. Assumptions, the curriculum might be too high, or the quality might be too low, or the curriculum might not be effective and efficient for the purpose we have it. Those are things that we need to take consideration of. Then we have the first 5-day training. How do we know? What will the indicator? 60 of the mothers attended. We'll have attendance registers. Conference venue is booked. We have a record of that. The means of verification, the invoice for the conference, the attendance registers. Result activity 1.4, the second 5-day training is presented. We have the same indicators, we have the same means of verification. Assumptions, there might not be a venue available at that stage. The weather or whatever could prevent us. If we move in winter, snow could prevent the mothers from reaching this, or rain in the summer. Those are all the external factors we need to consider, and we record them in our log frame. Number 1.5, the last activity, training evaluated. We've got evaluation forms. The mothers complete them, and we have the results and the data which can be analyzed, and we can produce a report on the success of the training on that end. Assumption, maybe not all the mothers complete the evaluation form, so we have an incomplete evaluation. So this is how an example, we start with a problem, we've reformulated into an objective, we determine which results are required, and we then develop activities which we can implement, measure, and demonstrate our success with evidence. There. Result 1, expert contracted, attendance registers, the house mothers are available, we've got a suitable expert. Training consultant recruited, advertising interviews, consultants have signed the contract, means of verification, copy of the adverts. Consultant develops the training curriculum, copy of the curriculum, first 5-day training, the participants have attended the training at the conference center, the participant list is our means of verification, copy of the contract with the conference center, and an assumption is the venue availability for the preferred dates. We might wish to have the training in this month, but there's no conference facilities available. Second 5-day training, house mothers can attend, replacement staff for this day at the shelters. One of the key things we need to do, we need to find replacement staff, because we're now removing the house mother for 5 days to attend this training. So who's going to perform her functions and look after her clients in those 5 days. So those are critical things you need to think about in more detail when you start looking at the assumptions. Training evaluated, all delegates complete evaluation forms, we've got the data, we analyze the data, and we can produce a report on that. Indicators, just some quick advice on indicators. Indicators need to be smart, specific, relate to the specific result and the activity. They need to be measurable. We cannot afford airy-fairy indicators that is not measurable. They need to be qualitative and quantitative statements, which should reflect the extent to which the results have been attained. 20 trainings for 30 students, at least 50% being women. Be aware, the quantities you define will have a major influence on your budget. So we can have very nice indicators, but we also need to consider the cost of measuring those indicators. Achievable, they must be realistic and acceptable by the involved partners. Relevant, it must be useful and provide useful information to evaluate and determine the success of the project. Time-bound, they must include target dates. Our indicators we have the first workshop before the end of the second month, the second workshop before the end of the third month 4 of the project. These dates, remember, these dates now need to correspond with the work plan you can produce. Take into account when developing indicators to reflect gender, youth, marginalized groups, language, class, ethnicity, language, education, disabilities. 50% of people attend with disabilities, or we want 10% of the delegates must be from the disabled grouping in the community. So think about those things when you develop indicators. Budget. If we start looking at the budget of the project, in the budget template that you've got, there's 6 types of categories. Number 1 is the so-called office and maintenance cost of the project. Number 2 is travel for project management and also travel for delegates to attend some events. Then category number 3 is workshop, training, events cost. Category number 4 is visibility or advocacy actions. What are you doing to promote this, highlight this, make people aware of this African-German exchange program, advocacy groups, get more people interested, get more young people activated to participate in exchange programs? Those are visibility advocacy actions. Number 5 is personnel costs. Because your organization is spending time in implementing this project, you might be able to recover some of these staff costs as top-up payments. We'll get into the detail of that just now. Then number 6 is other costs, publications, studies, research, translations, and some other costs. These are the main 6 categories of costs. You cannot add other categories of costs into this budget. We'll look at the budget in a little bit more detail now. The budget template is in Excel. It cannot be shown here as it would not be eligible, but I will look at some detail just now. Please refer to the distributed printout and the download of this. The contractor reserves the right to discuss changes to the proposed budget in your application once the evaluation has been done before you awarded a contract. There might be some proposed changes from the contracting agency. The budget must be submitted in Excel. This is extremely important to remember. You must submit an Excel sheet with your budget information. You cannot PDF it in order to make it easier to upload or for any other reason. You must make sure that you submit your budget as an Excel sheet. An example of a budget. In your budget, you need to make use of the exchange rate. You do your budget in your country currency. Since we're from South Africa, this budget that you see here is done in rands. There's a website link that you need to look at the conversion rate for the date you submit the budget. That will be the November exchange rate. I added it in there, which is currently, we're in October when this video is made. So the exchange rate that you see on the screen there, 0.06067, that is the South African Rand Euro exchange rate. Category 1, office, stationery, supplies, postage and equipment. In the template you've got, there's not that detailed breakdown. You must break your costs down in detail. This is another example where I've done some more detail into the first category. Office paper, office stationery, notepads for the office. Photocopies. How many photocopies do you expect to make? At what cost? Toner for your printer, if you print their own stuff. Postage, your bank fees. You're going to run a 5-month project. There's going to be a monthly banking fee for your bank account. You need to budget for that, and other costs as you do transactions. Telephone costs. You might have a landline in your office. What's the cost going to be for that? Estimated call cost. Telephone, cell phone costs, data costs. Your landline might have an ASDL or internet connection. Those are the costs you need to specify for over a 5-month period. Then office items, rent. You might allocate a part of your office rent as part of this project cost. Utilities, electricity, water, all of those services. This project can cover some of those costs. Computer, laptop. You can buy equipment in this project. You could buy a computer or a laptop for this project. You could buy a printer, and then other costs if you specify. The first column is the number of units. That is difficult in some instances. A laptop is easy, that's 1 unit. Rent is per month, it's 1 unit. The number of and then the unit cost. If you want a rent for 5 months, it will be 5 units. What will be the monthly cost? If you have photocopies, how many photocopies do you expect? 100, 200 per month times 5 months is 1,000 photocopies. What's the cost per photocopy? So you need to really think, what is the unit that you're going to use and what's the unit cost on this? On the right hand, there's a column that says justification. So you need to motivate and justify each of these cost elements. You cannot just add office rent, 5 months, X rand. You need to justify and say, for this 5 months, your office will be fully dedicated to this project. Or for 5 months, we expect that 20% of our time will go into this project, so we're charging 20% of the office rent we have. Here's our annual office cost, or our monthly office cost is this, 20% of that is what we charge here. Laptop, why do we need a laptop? Why do you need a computer? You need to justify that expense. Printer, why do you need a printer? Justify that. The second category of costs is travel. Sorry, let's just go back. Your office cost, you need to specify, and it may not be more than 50% of the total budget. So if the projects of 2,000 to 10,000, you can maximize 50% of the 10,000 can go to your supplies, office, your first budget line. It may not exceed 50%. The second budget line, travel. This may also not exceed 50%. You might have some categories, you might have high costs, some categories you might have lower costs. Travel, however, may not exceed 50% of the total budget of this. Here you also need to break down. Flight tickets. Once again, state the purpose and the destination of the flight, the justification of those flights. Bus tickets, train ticket, taxis. Taxis in South Africa is a major challenge. You need to have expense vouchers. So make sure that wherever you pay taxi fees, you make some sort of an arrangement to obtain expense vouchers. Kilometer claims. You might drive to projects, drive to workshops, drive to visit people. You need to plan and say, okay, we expect to drive so many kilometers and this is going to be the cost. What's the justification and the destination? Accommodation, subsistence allowances for people to attend workshops, participate in events, and any other stuff or costs you need to specify in detail. This is the second part of the budget. There's a subtotal there. It must be less or equal to 50% maximum. The third part of the budget, workshop, events, training. There we need to specify it per event. I've just done workshop 1. I've broken down some more detail to give you an indication on what are the typical costs involved in a workshop. Workshop 2, you do the same. If you have a conference, you just add a conference heading in there. Venue, normally you pay for what they call a daily conference package, a DCP package that includes coffee in the morning, tea time, lunch and afternoon tea, and the venue and everything. These are not specified separately. So you pay a fixed amount per delegate for the conference or the venue. Breakaway rooms. If you want to have breakaway discussions, normally venues will charge you extra for a breakaway room. Additional services. Some venues say we give you one mic included in the daily conference packages. If you want more microphones, you want more public address systems, sound systems, or whatever, they might charge you extra for that. Be prepared to budget for it. Flip charts, paper. Some venues include that as a free service, one pack of flip chart paper with some pens. If you want to use more than that, they're going to charge you for it. Notepads for your delegates, pens for your delegates. Those are things you need to budget for because they need to be purchased up front. Some hotels provide notepads and pens, but they're not generally large notepads. So depending on your project, how much do you expect your delegates to write? Will it be fine to just deal with a normal hotel notepad and pen, or do you want to buy them larger, more pages notepads? Workbooks. If you're going to have a training, a conference, a workshop, is there workbooks that needs to be prepared? Like in our example, there's a training expert that will train these house mothers curriculum, so we need to print copies of the curriculums. The expert might also develop the practical workbook for the mothers as part of the training. Those things you need to think about and accurately budget for them up front. Accommodation, bed and breakfast. Generally, accommodation is bed and breakfast because lunch is included in the conference fee. So we only budget for bed and breakfast and dinner separately. Any dinners, people that need to stay, or air tickets, travel costs for delegates to the workshop. Travel in kilometers, road travel, taxi costs, people that come to the workshop via taxi. Airport transfers, some people that you fly to the workshop, they need an airport transfer to reach the venue, unless your venue is close to the airport. Workshop facilitator fees. Do you want to hire somebody and pay them a fee to facilitate the workshop? Any other costs? Please add additional lines, specify it. In the right-hand column again, the main heading is justification. Why do you want 60 people? How do you get to 60? How will you calculate the 60? They come from regional offices, they come from youth organizations. How will your delegates be compiled? And then each of these costs, you need to add some notes. What is the justification for that type of cost? The same for workshop 2 or a conference. It will give you a subtotal of your workshop costs. The third element of the budget is other costs. Here you need to think about publications, graphic design, studies, research, projects, translation. Here you also need to budget for your monitoring evaluation. Where's the cost for monitoring these workshops? The cost overall for monitoring the indicators and obtaining the sources of verification and the data to do the monitoring and evaluation. Data analysis and report writing as part of that. That brings you to the total of your grand total of your application. The spreadsheet will add up and you'll get an indication whether you over budget or under budget in total on that. Practical example. Remember your 5 months duration of your project. No extension is possible and no changes to the budget is possible. These are severe limitations you need to take note of when developing your application. There is no time limit extension and there's no changes to the budget. You cannot now add an additional workshop or then say, okay, we now thought we might need a conference or we might need this or we might need that. So there's no changes to the budget, no extension to this process. Be very, very aware of this process. Your technical information, your work plan. We're looking for a very plain, simplified work plan. If you look at your template, the work plan, project start date, the activity, you start with entering the result, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 months. Then who will be responsible for this activity? Who will be responsible for implementing this? And then documents serving of proof of implementation. The result, activity, activity, activity. Let's apply this to our example. We got result 1, 60 house mother volunteers of XYZ province undergo 2 5-day workshops. Our implementation plan, activity 1 is the training consultant, as we have now in our log frame. We'll recruit the consultant in month 1. Who's responsible for that? The CEO of our NGO. What's the document that we'll have to prove that we've successfully completed this? It's the ad and the contract. Activity 1.2, the consultant developed the training curriculum. That will be done in month 2. The training manager is responsible to ensure that there's a training curriculum developed, and the training manual is the evidence that we have at the end of month 2 that this activity has been successfully completed. Activity number 3, the first training session for 5 days, that will happen in month 3. The training manager is responsible. The attendance register of that first training session is the evidence we have that this has been successfully completed. Activity number 4, the second training session, 5 days. We plan to have that in month 4, shortly after the first training session. Who's responsible? The training manager. Our evidence, the attendance register for the second training. Activity number 5, training evaluated. That we'll also do in month 4, immediately after the second training. We'll most probably do it after the first training as well. Who's responsible? The training manager. And what's our evidence? The evaluation forms and a report that reflects the evaluation that was given by the delegates to this training. So here's the work plan for result number 1, 5 activities over time, responsible people, and how will we verify that these activities has been completed. Now, the administrative information, the first step of your online application. I'm now going to look at a little bit more of the detail that required from the applicant themselves. There's some options and variances that's possible here in this process. The first part is the applicant details, contact details, and we require your registration document. Remember, to be eligible, you must be a registered youth organization. If you're not a registered youth organization, you can apply under what is determined a parent organization, some larger registered organization that's prepared to support a youth group, which must be a minimum of 3 young people, to implement this project. They take full accountability, they take full responsibility for the project, and they will sign the contract as well. Then questions related to the management and accounting system of the applicant. What we're looking at there is we need to determine that the organization has a clear system in place, that it's an eligible organization, and if you look at your application form, the applicant has an accounting system that reflects legal standards in the country. What we're looking for is the organization that applies must have at least some accounting system in place. If your accounting is done by means of an Excel spreadsheet, unfortunately that will not qualify as a proper accounting system. Your accountants or the parent organization accounting section must have a formalized accounting system or package. It can be a hand-based system where they enter transactions on a double entry base with journal ledgers and so on, or it could be a computerized accounting system. The applicant must be able to open a separate bank account. That's one of the key things. This project will have a bank account of its own. When you deal with a parent organization, they must be clearly aware of this requirement. The money and the funding for this project cannot just become part of the larger organization. The parent organization will have to open up a specific bank account for this project. Procurement of the applicant is in line with the procurement guidelines. There must be some procurement process in place. You need to answer yes, that there's also some guidelines in terms of how procurement will be done. For the successful organizations, there will be a training session on how procurement needs to be done. anti-corruption confirmation. We require that as part of your application, you confirm that you will not engage in any corruption or any dubious activities in the execution of this project. It's a clarification that's required from that. Then, which eligible action is addressed by the proposal? You need to make a choice between the three options that was discussed at the start of the video. It's a network enhancing and strengthening model, or it's a community-based action, or it's a new innovative German-African exchange program. You need to make a choice between that. If you're a non-registered group, we'll need the details of the registered parent organization as well as the non-registered group. One of the key things that you must remember is that this is for the age group 14 to 35. So all of your documentation, all of your objectives need to reflect that it's a group that's in the age group 14 to 35. Your beneficiaries, as well as the actual implementing personnel, needs to be in that age group to qualify for that. You make a choice of which action you want to address: support alumni networks, innovative exchange formats, community-based activity. Then some additional questions. In your application form, we'll ask some additional questions because we also would like to find out, how did you hear about this call for proposals under the African German Youth Initiative Innovation Fund? The quality of the support you received. As I indicated previously, there's implementing organizations in each of the countries. In South Africa, it's WESA. Tanzania is the Tanzania Youth Commission. And then in Benin, Ghana, and Togo, there's a different organization that facilitates in the French region the support. Where did you read about this? Is it an Engagement Global website, alumni networks, AU website? We would like to know how widely known this project is. Then the support received. Did you ask for support? Some people might just proceed and submit an application without support. We would like to know whether you asked support. And then we would also like to know, if you requested support, did you receive the support, and how satisfied were you with the report that you received? Was it helpful? And then any advice with regard to improving the support service. This is the first call. There will be a second call in early January. So we'd already like to hear from you. How can we improve the support service? How can we improve the whole process going forward? Now, the key thing is the project proposal. This is the heart of the whole process of this. It's got 11 headings. We call them chapters. There's 11 chapters in this. To ensure that we have uniformity along all applicants in all the countries, there's a specific requirement in terms of the font type you use. It's Arial 11, because the whole application may not be more than 5.5 pages. So if we don't all use the same font size and line spacing, single spacing, some people might have 10 pages, some people might have 5 pages. So we specify specifically, use an Arial 11 font, single spacing. And for each of these chapters or headings, you may use a half a page. So you must think very carefully when you complete the application form, because you'll roughly have about a half a page, 350 words for each of these bits of information in your application. It's not just start writing and completing information. You'll really need to sit down and think to comply with this, because the evaluation criteria says if it's more than 5.5 pages and there's more than half a page on any one of these headings, the application is administratively non-compliant. We'll go through the compliance check just now. So the first thing we need to look at is the logic and the timing. The location of the action, where will it take place? it's not just the country. Where specifically in the country will this action take place? Where specifically in the town, if possible? Provide information. You've got a half a page on the location of the action. The duration of the action. When do you intend starting the action? When do you intend completing the project? Within the 5-month timeline, some projects might be even completed in 3 months. Half a page for that. You most probably won't even use a full half page for that. The second heading, background information. First part, description of the target group. Remember when we started earlier on, how do we design a project, how we put a project together, who will be the beneficiaries, who's the target group. Now in your application, you now need to describe the target group. Please describe the target group in terms if it's a marginalized group with regards to age, gender, class, ethnicity, language, and so on. Describe your target group in detail. The second part of this half page, in other words, a quarter page, the current situation of the target group. Here you refer back to the original problem statement you formulated and the objective. This is the current situation of the target group, and we're going to implement this project to improve their situation to the following status. This is where you provide and you refer back to your log frame. This is the situation, the problematic situation or challenging situation we define, and this is how we're going to develop the solution, and this is how this situation is going to be improved at the end of this project. This is what we require in background section 2. Heading 3, result to be achieved by the action for the target group. Here you write down the 2 results that you formulated in your log frame and provide some more background as to why achieving these results are so important. These results are generally short statements, but here you have a half a page. We prefer that you stick to 2 results, and you now have the opportunity to write down these results, copy them from your log frame, and explain a little bit more why this specific result is so important to achieve what you've just written on paragraph 2, the improvement of the current situation of the beneficiaries. Heading number 4, half a page. Indicators of the expected change of the target group. I think you now get an understanding of why we said complete the log frame before you start completing the application. Because all of this information is already available. It's available in your log frame. You can now write down the indicators from your log frame and provide some more background as to why these indicators will demonstrate the achievement. Here we now move to more narrative writing style. You've got a half a page to write about these indicators. There's indicators for your results. There's indicators for each of your activities. So you can now write a nice half-page narrative style why these indicators will clearly indicate and measure the expected change for the target group. Heading number 5, the activities linked to the expected results. Once again, here you copy, write down the activities you intend to implement for each of the results. We've got 2 results. We've got a half a page for paragraph number 5. So a quarter page will go to result 1. A quarter page will go to result 2. The activities, you can now discuss the activities in a little more narrative. It's not just a question of copying and pasting the activities from the log frame. Because in the log frame, they're very cryptically formulated. It might be 1 sentence. Here you now need to create a nice narrative paragraph on how all these activities are related together. And these activities together will deliver the result that we want to achieve. Paragraph 6, half a page. Assumptions that might negatively affect achievement of the results. Once again, these are listed in the right-hand column of your log frame. You now can write a nice narrative paragraph on the assumptions from your log frame, provide a little bit more background on why these things and these assumptions are relevant for this project and the risks. You can also here, to demonstrate insight in your assumptions and challenges, also propose some mitigation measures. If the conference venue is not available, this is what measures we will implement. If the season or the weather would not allow, these are the type of things we could do. You've got a half a page to write about the assumptions, factors that could negatively inform your project, but you can also here explain insight and say these are the mitigation measures, this is how we're going to deal with these things should they happen. Number 7, methodology. This is one of the most important paragraphs in your whole application. The evaluation criteria is looking at what makes your action innovative. How will you organize partnership and collaboration with other stakeholders in your action? How will you organize the management of the action? Staff assigned to the duty to implement this, the monitoring process, the procurement process, the budget control process, the accounting that will take place. Very important, number 4. How do you foresee mutual learning between the different actors and stakeholder groups will take place in your ACTG? As I said, this will most probably be the most difficult paragraph to write, as it's only a half a page. There are 4 items listed here. I propose that you start with 1 sentence for each of these 4 questions above. Write 1 sentence, what makes your proposal innovative? 1 sentence, how will you organize partnership and collaboration? 1 sentence about your management approach and process to this activity. 1 sentence about the mutual learning process that will take place. Now, read the evaluation criteria, we'll discuss it just now, and then reformulate and expand on these 4 sentences, because you've now got a half a page, 350 words to deal with these 4 key questions, which is linked to the evaluation criteria. You need to spend a lot of time and really formulate this well. Number 8, coherence. This is a project in conjunction between the German Development Agency, GIZ, and the African Union. It also aimed at the overall international global sustainable development goals. There's 17 of them. They listed there. There's a web link where you can find more information about them. There's also the AU Agenda 2063, which aims at promoting specific activities and objectives and goals for Africa. In this half a page, you need to clearly indicate where does your project fit in and link up to these sustainable development goals and this Africa AU Agenda 2063. You need to clearly do this and link your project to these activities. Number 9, very important. This is the deciding factor. Expected sustainability. Continuation after the end of the action. Remember earlier on we spoke when you start thinking about your project, you also needed to start thinking what will happen when this project ends? How will these benefits continue? How will these activities proceed and continue to create benefits for the target group once this project ends in month 5? 2 key questions. How will your project action continue after the end of the funding? What measures do you plan to ensure sustainability of the project? A very important second element you need to address here, which we haven't addressed yet, scalability and replication. How could your project be scaled up or replicated in another context? This you need to also take into consideration when you start designing your project. How is this possible to replicate this in another country, in another setting? Is this a mutual learning process that we can do and replicate in another country, in another setting? Scalability. This is an innovation fund, which means it funds startup activities, new things, innovative ideas. How can this be scaled? Now that we've done it, we have successfully completed it, we expect if we successfully complete this small project, it can be scaled over time to this level. We can, instead of involving 10 or 15 people, if we replicate this, we can scale it and involve 100, 150 members of the community over time in future. Those are the key things the evaluating panel will look at when they look at your sustainability. Paragraph 10. How will you monitor in how far the expected results was achieved? Once again, we refer back to the log frame. You've got your indicators, you've got your sources of verification, you've got your targets. Here you need to describe how we will perform this continuous monitoring process. From month 1, month 2, month 3, month 4, month 5. We are planning these activities for month 1. This is how we're going to monitor this process. We're planning these activities for month number 2. This is how we're going to monitor in month number 2. These are the processes we're going to put in place. We're going to provide monthly reports. We're going to ask the project manager to report to the CEO on a monthly basis. How are you going to monitor that these results will be achieved? It's not just the activities, the implementation of the activities. It's the impact. What are we achieving with these activities? We need to monitor these results from very early on. Are we really going to achieve this result, or can we early on see that there's going to be some challenges to ensure that we achieve these results and fulfill the indicators we've set in our log frame? Here, the evaluators would like to see how do you going to manage this monitoring process to ensure the success of your project. The last paragraph, justification of the budget. In the budget itself, there was the right-hand column where you justified each expenditure item. Now, in your application, the last half a page is a narrative, motivation and justification of your budget. As we indicated, there's 6 elements: office and administration costs, travel and project management costs, workshops, training, conferences, events, visibility and advocacy, personnel costs, staff salary, top-up payments, other costs you might have specified in your budget. You will need to think very carefully as you only have half a page. Only about 50 to 80 words per budget item. So you now need to provide a narrative. Our office and administration cost, this is where it fits in with our organization, or this is the support and cost that we need to cover for the parent organization to be able to provide this support. Travel for project management purposes, if we need to manage travel, all of that. Workshop trainings, this is where the workshops fit in. These are the costs, these are the costs are justified. This is why we're relevant. This is why we have 50 people, or we have 30 people, or we have 10 people in a workshop. Visibility, advocacy, motivate, describe. Personnel cost, salary top-up payments. You need to justify the percentages of the top-up payments. Because of this, in month 1, 2, 3, we'll only top up 10% of the accountant's salary. But in month 4 and 5, when we start getting to the finals, there's more accounting, there's reporting to be done, we might up that to about 20 or 25% of the accountant's salary. So these you need to describe here, the justification of your budget. Once you've submitted your application, it's received by the implementing organization, GFA Consulting, and first of all, we'll conduct an administrative compliance check. This is your first hurdle to pass. If you look in your guidelines, you'll find an evaluation grid. The first page is the administrative compliance grid. Paragraph 1, administrative compliance. Eligibility of the applicant. You'll see on the right-hand side, there's only 2 options. It's a yes or a no. If you look at the bottom of that sheet, you'll see if there's 1 no, it's not considered administratively compliant. So you need to very carefully work through this administrative compliance list once you've completed your proposal and make sure that you meet all of these criteria. Eligibility of the applicant. Is the applicant eligible? Is it a youth organization? Is it a registered youth organization? Is it a youth group with a parent organization? Is the information on the application complete? All the personal details, copies of IDs, copies of registration certificates. Are the required documents of the applicant uploaded? Registration documents, copies of IDs of the individuals that will be informed in this? Yes, 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 you're fine. Management and accounting of the applicant. Here you need to specify on the shortlisted applicants, we will come and verify and do a due diligence check before your contract is awarded. 121. Did the applicant tick the above boxes related to the management and accounting with a yes? In your application, we asked, do you have a computer-based system? Do you have procurement processes? Anti-corruption systems? Excuse me. Those questions you need to answer yes. Did the applicant tick all the boxes? The very first box there asked whether there's co-funding. That box is not compulsory because co-funding is not a compulsory element. We just want to know whether there will be co-funding on this. The other boxes you need to tick yes. You have an accounting system, you have a procurement system, those things. Okay, now you find on number 1.2, yes. 1.3, administrative compliance of the application. Has the technical proposal been completed with the correct format? Have you used the template? Is it formatted in those 11 chapters? Does the technical proposal respect the given rules? Is it done in 11 chapters? Arial 11, have you added page numbers? Yes. Is the logical framework in line with the format? We've given you a template. Did you use that template? Yes. Is the budget in line with the format attached and submitted as an Excel sheet? We ask you to add additional lines to specify, is it completed? Justifications there? Yes. Is the budget according to the requirements, unit cost, number of unit, total cost per budget line? Is the conversion to your local currency euro done correctly? Here is a risk. If you don't do your euro conversion correctly according to the value on this website, the tick there will be no. This will administratively disqualify your application. So for 1.3.5, make very sure and make absolutely sure that your correct budget conversions into euro. Are the ceilings on the budget lines respected? You do not need to submit an application that ends up at exactly 10,000 euro. If it comes to 8,000 and your activity is completed on 8,000 euro, no problem. You don't need to actually submit a budget that gets to 10,000 or 15,000. That's the ceilings. It may not exceed those values. If it's less, it's fine, no problem. Is the duration of the action up to 5 months? We look at your work plan. Is it within 5 months? Will it be completed? Is the budget within the set budget limits? 2,000 to 10,000, 2,000 to 15,000, 2,000 to 10,000. Yes. Does your application meet the specifications of the eligible funding lines? Did you clearly indicate for which of these three your application is? If you miss out on this, we don't know where your application fits in. Does it fit in with the alumni structures? Does it fit in with exchange formats and approaches? Does it fit in with community-based actions? Did you clearly indicate in your application form which one of these three funding windows you pick? Final result of the administrative check. Yes, 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 yes. Comment. Rejection of the application if one answer is no. So please, once you've completed your log frame, you've completed your work plan, you've completed your budget, you've completed your application form, take this administrative compliance sheet and check whether you meet all the criteria specified in the administrative compliance, because only then will your proposal be evaluated and considered for funding. Now, the second part of the evaluation. If your proposal is found administratively compliant, it will go to the technical evaluation process. The evaluation criteria and sheet is in your document pack. It can be you have downloaded it. The rating, you can get 1 of 4 scores. Very weak, scores 1. Weak, score 2. Good, score 3. And excellent, score 4. 2.1, the evaluation criteria related to the relevance of your proposal. 2.1.1. How relevant is the action to the objective and priorities of the call and support of alumni structures, network, innovative exchange processes, community-based projects? It's measured how relevant is your objectives and priorities in relation to the funding window you picked. Is it excellent? You get 4. Is it good? You get 3. 2.1.2. Are the target groups in the needs and their needs clearly and appropriately defined, and does the action address their needs appropriately? Remember, in the application we said this is the target group, this is their current situation, and this is how this proposal is going to improve their situation. If the evaluator reads that paragraph, what will your score be? Very weak, weak, good, or excellent? 2.1.3. Here is a risk for your application. Does the action target marginalized groups? So you must ensure that it's clear from your application that your target group includes marginalized stakeholder groups, sections of the community, part of society, because here is where you can lose a lot of points. If you get a very weak here, you lose 3 points. This makes a difference in the total that you can achieve. So please ensure that your target group includes marginalized elements. Does the proposed action address the Sustainable Development Goals and the AU Agenda 23 in a practical, demonstrable way and with a clear potential result? This is a very, very critical criteria. For you to score an excellent year, that paragraph in your application needs to be extremely clear how your action is related to the SDGs and the AU Agenda 2063 and demonstrates a clear potential to influence and support the achievement of those objectives. 2.1.5. Is the proposed action innovative? For all 3 those windows, the community-based activity, supporting the networks and structures, and innovative new exchange formats. All 3 of those funding windows must have an innovation element. Here, once again, your innovation component, when reading your proposal, what will your score be? Weak, good, or excellent? For this part, 2.1, you can score a maximum of 20 points. 5 questions, 4 maximum score, so you can score 20 points here. Effectiveness. The second part of the evaluation deals with the effectiveness of your proposal. Are the proposed activities and methodology appropriate and consistent with your results? Good or excellent? Does the action foresee mutual learning between different actors, youth, communities, other target groups? Is your proposal good or is it excellent? Is the action plan feasible in terms of timing, sequencing, and duration? Your action plan, is it good or is it excellent? Quality of the logical framework. Are the activities clearly designed to reach the expected results, and are the indicators appropriate and realistic? When people read your logical framework, is it a weak logical framework? Is it a good logical framework? Or is it an excellent logical framework? 4 questions, maximum of 4 marks, total score for effectiveness, maximum 16. Sustainability, and critical evaluation criteria, because this is an innovation fund. It kickstarts, it enables to start things which need to be sustainable over the long run. It's not flash in the pan projects that we're looking for. Does the action have the potential to be used for knowledge transfer? Any one of those 3, a network support action, innovative youth exchange action, or a community-based action? Can there be knowledge transfer, for example, via a product like a video, a website, a document, in order to transmit the experiment to others for a potential for scaling up? Your proposal, is it good or is it excellent when we ask this question? Will the action, 2.3.2, will the action in some form continue after the end of funding? Looks like a very simple question that actually asks a yes-no question. This is not a yes-no question. This is scored very weak, good, or excellent. What will your score be in terms of the potential and sustainability of your action after completion? Maximum of 8 scores on sustainability. The last element of the evaluation is the budget evaluation. Are the activities well reflected in the proposed budget? Here we're looking for the linkages between your result, the activities per result. How does that feed into your budget under those 6 budget headings? Is it good or is it excellent? 3.2 looks like a very simple question. Is the proposed budget appropriate? We're looking at the activity as a whole, the results to be achieved, the activities to be implemented, the cost to implement those activities. Is it appropriate for what you want to achieve? It's not a yes-no question. Is it good or is it excellent? Maximum score of 8. The grand total of your technical and budget evaluation, if you scored excellent for each of these questions, the maximum score is 52. If you scored very weak for these questions, the minimum score is 13. So you cannot score 0, which is good news. But you don't want to score 13 because you want to be one of the best applications. On 52, just think for a moment, if 2 of your questions was evaluated good and not excellent, your score is 50. 4 of your questions evaluated good and not excellent, your score is 48. Another project comes and they've got only 3 questions that was scored good and they've got 49 points. 1 point difference because 1 question was not evaluated as good but excellent. That's why they tip you and they might get funded and that proposal get funded and your proposal does not get funded. So it's critical, once again, do a self-evaluation. You've completed your log frame, completed your budget, completed your work plan, completed your application. Do the administrative compliance check yourself. Then take the evaluation criteria and read the question, go read your application. Evaluation of the log frame. Go look at the log frame. What will it score? Will it be good? Will it be excellent? And then, only then, can you really submit your application once you're satisfied that you will have the best possible score for your whole application on this end. I'm concluding this whole process. Introduction to the African German Youth Innovation Fund, technical support, how to design projects, how to conceptualize projects, things that can be done. That support is from your implementing organization. In South Africa, it's WESA. Tanzania is the Tanzania Youth Commission. Benin, also the hub for Togo and Ghana, is Fawaza Ya. You've got an organization. It was clearly communicated to you in the info sessions. Administrative support. Technical issues around budget, how do you do this, can I add an extra line, those type of things. You've got your country coordinator, South Africa, myself, Yuri van Niekerk, Tanzania, my colleague Joel Makwatulu, and in Benin also for Ghana and Togo, my colleague Jean-Marie Hongbo. You've got our contact details, feel free to contact us, we're there to support you and help you prepare a very good application. From my side, I hope that this video has added value and has empowered you to really sit down, start the process to develop an excellent proposal that you can submit on the 14th of November. I thank you for your kind attention in this video. As I say, hope it added value in the process, and good luck with your application. Thank you.